All right, welcome back to the channel. Jermall Charlo staking his claim as the best at 160 ahead of his fight with Hogan that's coming up in December. And I'm telling you, I think there's a very good argument that this cat might be telling the truth. And so let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. Also, I want to say thank you so much to everybody in my two most important communities, the Patreon community and the live stream community. The Patreon community, thank you so much for your support. Also, to the live stream community, thank you for coming to the channel every Monday through Friday, right around 11:15 a.m. Central and 8 a.m. On Sunday Central Time with my co-host KQKC Boxing, Blood Boxing, and Curtis Anderson, where we wrap up the week with that show. Now, let's talk about this middleweight division. Middleweight division right now, in my opinion, is the most messed up division in boxing. It is a fairly deep division with a lot of very good fights that can happen, but I think that there's just a lot of ducking going on. There's a lot of ducking. There's a lot of especially of the person that we're talking about primarily in this video, which is Jermall Charlo. Jermall Charlo is 29-0 with 21 knockouts. He hasn't got a knockout in his last two fights, and he's going to be fighting in December against this cat Hogan, an Irish guy who fights out of Australia, most famous for his fight with Jaime Munguia. Many people believe that he beat Jaime Munguia, that he outboxed Jaime Munguia, who was the WBO 154-pound champion. Typically, I don't get into that type of speculation or give my opinions. I like to respect the judges because, hey man, you know, there's some people think you win, some people think you lose. At the end of the day, what the judges say goes. You know, going into a fight with Jaime Munguia, especially Dennis Hogan, that he's going to get the decision if you don't knock him out, because that's the house fighter, that's the big money fighter, or at least the bigger money fighter for Golden Boy. And you know, that's boxing politics. It's unfortunate, but that's boxing politics. So Jermall Charlo is going to be fighting Dennis Hogan. Dennis Hogan is 28-2. And I think he only has 7 knockouts, so it's not bringing a lot of power to the table against Jermall Charlo. More than likely, Jermall Charlo is going to steamroll this guy and get him out of here. His coach is saying that he's going to steamroll him and get him out of here, and I have no reason to believe that that's not going to be the case. He fought a very two underestimated fighters in the last 2 fights. Jermall Charlo, I'm talking about the one where he fought against had a last-minute replacement for a fight and wind up fighting Matt Korobov, who's a southpaw counterpunching Russian. Is he Russian? I believe he's Russian. Very good fighter. Very good fighter that a lot of people avoided and will continue to avoid because he's an excellent fighter. He actually, and that was on the undercard or the co-main event where Jermall Charlo and Jermall Charlo both fought. Jermall Charlo had fought Tony Harrison in the penultimate fight, or the fight that became second to last, and lost to Tony Harrison. I think it's fair to say that might have distracted Jermall Charlo a little bit, and you know, just the combination of that and the fact that he was fighting somebody like Matt Korobov made the fight closer, made for a very close fight. But Jermall Charlo pulled it out because Jermall Charlo figured out that straight right hand, kept that straight left hand that Korobov was throwing, made that eventually neutralized that weapon, pursued his jabbing, and won the fight with the jab. This guy, Greg Hogan, is not the level, I don't believe, even of a Brandon Adams. Brandon Adams, I was ringside for that fight, and Jermall Charlo was beating up Brandon Adams. Brandon Adams was a very tricky fighter. He had a lot of what you call, what I refer to as a lot of gamesmanship, right? Every time he got hurt, he came to Jermall Charlo and kind of forced Jermall Charlo into retreating a little bit and not being able to take advantage of the damage that Jermall Charlo was doing with his jab and his straight right hand. Because I'm telling you, man, I was sitting maybe 4 or 5 rows back from the ring on that fight, and man, you could see You can see now both of them were landing solid shots, but Jermall Charlo on a consistent basis was hurting this dude. But you can see that he was just Brandon Adams was a wily cat, figured out how to survive and looked good while he was surviving. Now we're moving on to James Hogan. But the idea though that Jermall Charlo was talking about, and the thing that I agree with is, man, there's very well a chance that Jermall Charlo was the best at 160 pounds. Jermall Charlo was 29-0 at this point in time. He was he was a champion at 154 pound division. He's now the 160 pound WBC champion, and he's the WBC champion that I think is actually legitimate. I'm definitely not a fan of this franchise idea where you have a fighter who has a title that nobody else can win from him, and also prevents him from having or exempts him. That's a better word. Exempts him from having to fight any mandatory fighters or anybody in his ring in the ranking system below him. So pretty much, Jermall Charlo was the one that would be, or the WBO champion is the one that's toting the water for the WBA's franchise champion, right? He's the one that has to fight who has to take on mandatory challengers. He's the one that has all of the responsibilities, the actual responsibilities around being a champion, while the franchise champion can do whatever he wants, fight whoever he wants, and still continue to be a champion until he loses. But at that point in time, he then becomes a champion emeritus and then can get a title shot at any time that he wants. That's a designation. I think that's completely unfair. The champion in my book should be the guy that actually has to defend against mandatories. But that's a long story short. Look, man, Canelo Alvarez didn't want to fight this guy. Canelo Alvarez doesn't want to fight this guy. Gennady Golovkin doesn't. Gennady Golovkin had an opportunity to fight him. Gennady Golovkin doesn't want to fight him. Demetrius Andrade, Jermall Charlo said that he's very willing to go over there to zone and fight Demetrius Andrade. He said Demetrius Andrade or Andrade. I'm not quite sure I think he pronounces Andrade. I know people who have that same last name that pronounce it Andrade, but I believe it's Andrade is how he pronounces it. I doubt very much that Demetrius Andrade tries to make that fight. But for the people that consistently throw out that Jermall Charlo needs to go to the zone to fight one of those guys, no, he doesn't. He doesn't have to sign a multi-fight deal with DAZN to go there. All he's got to do is agree to fight any one of those guys on DAZN. He doesn't have to sign with DAZN to do that. Vasily Lomachenko fought on DAZN. He didn't sign with DAZN to fight Luke Campbell. He went over there and he fought on DAZN. He went and fought on DAZN for a fight. That's it. He went over there. There was Luke Campbell fought Vasily Lomachenko. Vasily Lomachenko fights on ESPN for one fight. He went and fought on ESPN. He beat Luke Campbell for the WBC belt and presumably he's going to go back over there to ESPN because that's where he fights. So why couldn't Jermall Charlo go over to DAZN for one fight, beat Demetrius Andrade, or if he can beat Demetrius Andrade, fight Demetrius Andrade and either leave his WBC belt over there at DAZN or take the WBO belt with him to wherever he goes next. Or if they want to then negotiate a fight with Dimitrov, he can fight Dimitrov on Showtime or Fox or wherever he goes. What's the issue with that? Jermall Charlo's not in a circumstance, as proved by Vasily Lomachenko, that he has to sign with DAZN for a multi-fight deal to fight Demetrius Andrade. And he said he'd be willing to go. But I think Jermall Charlo very well might be the best 160 pounder. And I'm telling you, I don't believe that somebody fighting, especially with the fight that we saw with Gennady Golovkin and Derevyanchenko, they're making all kind of excuses for Gennady Golovkin being sick, the week up to the fight and whatever. Nah, man. Yeah, excuses. Excuses. Demetrius, I'm going to respect that Gennady Golovkin got the decision, and that he's the IBF champion. But I don't think Derevyanchenko is a Jermall Charlo. I think Jermall Charlo and Daniel Jacobs styles are similar enough to give me an idea about what would happen with Jermall Charlo and Derevyanchenko. I think. Well, I don't think it'll be a knockout, because I think Derevyanchenko has got really good solid power. But the uppercuts Jermall Charlo's jab, straight right, and uppercut are something ugly. And I think that he'll beat Derevyanchenko. I think that he'll beat Gennady Golovkin. I think that he'd beat Demetrius Andrade would be a very interesting fight. However, having fought Matt Korobov, I think is actually an advantage for Jermall Charlo going into the Demetrius Andrade fight, because Demetrius Andrade, one of the big issue with Demetrius Andrade and fighting Demetrius Andrade is that he's a southpaw. And having fought Jermall Charlo, proven that he can fight a top-level southpaw, hey, man, I think that bodes well for him against Demetrius Andrade. But look, man, I'm looking forward to and hoping that Jermall Charlo has the opportunity to prove that. Canelo Alvarez, man, after he gets done doing whatever he's doing over there with Sergey Kovalev, I would hope that he would come back down to 160 pounds and fight these guys so that we can see who the best middleweight in the world is, and let the winner let the actual fight that takes place dictate, who people say is the best. I think it's a cheap tactic by the WBC to maintain Canelo Alvarez as their champion by making up this franchise garbage, and it's just unfair to the belt. But anyway, it is what it is. Let me know what you think in the comment section about who the best 160-pound fighter is and how you want to see that division play out. And with that, I'm out. Peace.